Alright, you better get ready for spooky technology time. Hello and welcome to Sci-Fi Night. I'm your host, Sebastian Vendel-Martinez, and we're getting dystopian tonight with our top 5 favorite Black Mirror episodes. The sci-fi underground hit series Black Mirror returned to Netflix at the end of 2017 with its 4th season, which delivered 6 mostly pretty good episodes. For those who don't know, Black Mirror is an anthology show with different sci-fi or technology themes and usually extremely bleak and sardonic statements on society. It's smart, dark, relevant, dark, witty, dark, creative, dark. Oh yeah, did I mention how dark it is? Most of the episodes have a really fucked up twist at the end, like a really shitty Kinder Egg where the surprise is momentary depression. Oh yeah, and as usual, I will be staying away from spoilers since the fucked up twists that make you go are such a big important part of the overall enjoyment. Alright, so I know I'm probably not making it sound that fun, but this series is actually really fucking good. And we might as well get started with not one, but 2 honorable mentions. The first honorable mention goes to Shut Up and Dance, Season 3, Episode 3. So this seems to be an episode that a lot of people don't like, and I don't really get why. In it, we follow a young man who gets blackmailed to do tasks for some faceless hackers. His little missions get darker and more dangerous up until a violent end when we get hit with a fucked up dark twist that makes you go. I really love the ending to this episode with a perfect song choice by Radiohead, and it's a thrilling ride all the way.
We escape. We escape.
What did you do, Kenny?
The second honorable mention goes to Season 4, Episode 4, Hang the DJ. So, in some kind of unspecified future, our relationships are basically controlled by an app calculating our perfect match by setting us up with partners for a predetermined amount of time until we finally get paired off for life with a final partner. We follow 2 people whose chemistry seem to be stronger than the system, which in itself is dark and mysterious. I don't want to say too much, but this is a great episode that actually made me pretty emotional, but it was beat out by another episode that did romance a little bit better.
3, 2, 1, go. 12 hours.
Yeah, 12 hours.
Okay.
Bit short.
He's a bit short.
Okay, so that brings us to a number 5 spot, which goes to Season 1, Episode 2, 15 Million Merits. God damn, this is bleak. Okay, so anyway, in this episode we follow Bing, who, along with others, is trapped in a weird society where they have to cycle to power the world, but also earn merits to win their freedom. One day Bing meets a girl, Abby, with a great singing voice. He falls in love and vows to help her out, so he gives her all his merits and she enters a America's Got Talent style show to try to win her freedom.
Look around here, I just want something real to happen. Just once.
And that's where I'm cutting it short because, as I previously stated, these episodes are too good to be spoiled. So while this is very straightforward and on-the-nose storytelling, the changes that Bing go through in this episode go from hopeful to heart-wrenching to horrified to different. It says so much about human nature and how easily talent and ideal can be bought in a society that just favors consumerism over everything else. It's a frightening tale about the dark sides of man and power, and this episode definitely merits a high spot on any list.
Resume viewing. Resume viewing. Resume viewing.
Alright, so that brings us to number 4 spot, which goes to Season 4, Episode 1, the USS Callister. So when Black Mirror finally returned to TV last year, it did so with a very different episode. In true Black Mirror form, the episode starts off with certain themes and characters that end up being different and darker once we get a closer look. In the episode, we follow software developer Robert Daly, who's obsessed with the game Infinity, which he has modded to be his own Star Trek-style experience, populated with sentient artificial characters made from DNA scans of his co-workers.
That gas cluster is charged with ionized pyron particles. If our shields hold, We can use them to increase our photon intensity. Pack or increase thrusters.
So what starts off as a fun space adventure takes a much darker turn as soon as we start getting to know the characters a bit more, as is usually the case in many Black Mirror episodes. Basically, this artificial world isn't as innocent as it seems at first glance, and the tonal shifts are big but very appropriate. The entire cast is great, and while it does have depth and darkness at the end, it isn't an episode that makes you want to kill yourself. Unlike a certain episode of Season 4, Crocodile. No, this is much more of a quasi-happy / bittersweet ending and an overall tone and rhythm that brings up the best aspects of Black Mirror while also changing it up a bit and adding more color and energy. Overall, this is a great start to Season 4, a great episode, and it rolls at light speed to the number 4 spot.
That was incredible, Captain! You saved our lives.
Okay, that brings us to the number 3 spot, which goes to White Christmas. So, who'd have thought that a Christmas special would end up being so great? In this special little tale starring John Hamm and Rafe Spall, what kind of name is that? Alright, anyway, in it we get these two men having a conversation at their work out in the middle of nowhere, as we tell one another about their lives and how they ended up there.
Oh, don't say you were a spiritual guru.
I was decidedly not a spiritual guru.
We get to hear 3 different stories, all of which either affect or are connected to each other. As we go from one story to the next, the themes get darker and darker, and the final revelation is great. And once again, I can't really tell you anything more without lessening your experience, but trust me when I say that this episode is more well wrapped up than a first-class present from the North Pole. Oh man, this was a fantastic episode with great writing, acting, and direction, and the way all the stories gel together at the end is equal parts horrifying and brilliant.
Which is all fine and dandy until something like this happens, and then it's bullshit.
I will actually be bringing up this episode in a future Christmas episode, so I'd rather not get too into it, but trust me when I say that this episode is well worth asking Santa for.
It wasn't really real, so it wasn't really barbaric. Again, you are not who I expected.
Alright, that brings us to the number 2 spot and one of the darker episodes, Season 2's Be Right Back. Season 2 of Black Mirror kicked off with this little gem, which a lot of people have as their number 1 spot. Why? Well, it's without a doubt one of those episodes that hits the closest to home and we can all probably relate to it in some way. In this episode, we follow a couple where the man is a little too into social media to the point of almost forgetting reality.
There's only one bowl. Do you mind having yours out of a shoe?
Mm-hmm.
He later dies in a tragic accident, leaving his girlfriend alone and pregnant. The loss of her boyfriend obviously devastates her, and it goes so far that she's willing to try something a little bit extreme. Haunted by the loss and unable to bear it all, she resorts to a new technology that analyzes all the person's social media interactions and basically makes an AI out of them. She can use her phone to talk to the AI representing her boyfriend, who sounds and reacts just like him.
You sound just like him.
Almost creepy, isn't it? I say creepy, I mean it's totally batshit crazy I can even talk to you. I mean, I don't even have a mouth.
This isn't enough though, and she eventually goes from contacting him via Android to, well, I guess contacting him as an android, who imitates her boyfriend based on the data they have.
I won't bite.
But as you can probably guess, this is not a happily ever after sort of episode. This isn't an episode that needs any action or super dark themes. This is much more relevant in dealing with detachment from reality, the loss of a loved one, and the desperation we can go through when dealing with such a crisis. It's a heart-wrenching episode that actually made me pretty emotional and really makes you think and wonder about how we spend our time, what we value in life, and the small imperfections and details that make us, well, us.
She said that she was happy that I'd moved on.
Moved on to what? Is that not the sort of thing I'd say? I mean, it is, isn't it? Are you sure everything's all right?
Yes! Shit!
Whew, that shit got depressing quick. But that leaves us with our #1 spot, and yes, I'm a big old softie, San Junipero. Alright, so this is very often in the top 3 of people's favorite episodes, and rightfully so. This is a wonderful hour of television encompassing all the core elements of Black Mirror, but without shining a negative light on all of them. In it, we follow 2 women who meet during the 80s, perhaps? Well, that's not very futuristic, but okay. Anyway, they meet in this strange place called San Junipero, where everyone is always having a good time and partying. But this place, San Junipero, isn't really all that it seems. The newcomer, Yorkie, becomes close with one of the more seasoned party girls there, and they begin to adventure together.
What would you like to do that you've never done?
Oh, so many things.
San Junipero is a party town. All up for grabs.
Obviously things aren't all happy-go-lucky, and there are some genuinely rough and heavy moments in this episode, but they're so well balanced out by an optimistic outlook on things that is truly refreshing, as the very first feel-good episode of a show after 2 whole seasons of dark and cynical stuff. It's feel-good without being cheesy or ham-fisted. It's sincere, and at times it shows us some of the sadder sides of humanity when it comes to loneliness and isolation.
Maybe you should feel bad. Or at least feel something.
But at the end of the day, this is a wonderful episode that has stuck with me ever since I first saw it, and so far, nothing's beaten it for me.
Hey, you okay?
Yeah.
So that about does it for this episode of Sci-Fi Night Top 5. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, be sure to let us know what your top 5 looks like in the comments below, or you can also let us know what you thought of this episode, the series Black Mirror, and give us some suggestions for future content. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian Vendel-Martinez, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Well, what went to shit for you?
You sure you don't want that drink?
Did you talk your way into trouble?
In a roundabout way.